Hello, my friends, and welcome to Postscript. It's nice to have you with us again. And we're happy to have an interview today with Gregg Braden, our friend Gregg. How are you, Gregg?
John, I am beyond epic. I am so excited for this. I'm excited for this conversation because I get to come to be with you and your community and in Berkeley Springs, and we're going to talk about what that's all about. And it's
Oh, yeah,
first
yeah.
time we've had this conversation, so I'm excited.
Right. It's great, and we love it having you with us. You've been kind to come every year now for a good while, and it always is something new and very interesting, and we are really looking forward to it. It's going to be for our viewers. It's going to be on the 31st of May. It's going to be a Saturday, the 31st of May, and it's going to be a big full weekend starting with a Friday Friday night happy hour. We're going to take over a local tavern, I guess, and then it'll be Gregg Braden all day, and then we'll have dinner on Saturday night. So it'll really be fun and a good thing to do. And so, what have you been thinking about? What are you going to talk about? This will be fun. Good.
John, this is I'm excited about this program. Your invitation gave me the reason to put this program together. It's hard for me to justify taking the time to do it unless I'm going to present it somewhere. It's no secret that there's a concerted effort to merge biology with technology, to merge our bodies with technology. And what we're rarely told is that the price that we pay for doing that is that we lose aspects of our humanness, and we're only beginning to understand what that even means, John. We really
Yeah.
don't even understand what it means to be human. What we're going to do in this program from three unconventional sources is explore where they converge in revealing the deep truth of who we are from a number of different perspectives. I'm a systems thinker, I think, as most of our community knows. I like to look at the big picture first. When I had the opportunity back in the 1990s, early 2000s, to explore some of the what are called lost texts, they're lost because they were edited out of traditional canons by a number of councils. Now, one of those councils, very familiar, 325 AD, the Council of Nicaea. Many people have heard about that. I've written about it. But many people don't know, in the year 419, there was an additional series of councils, the councils of Carthage. And those documents are considered some of the most dangerous and heretical documents by the Catholic Church. And when I began to understand that, I said, well, those are the ones I want to see,
Yeah.
of course. So we're going to begin with a deep dive that gives us a big picture of who we are from a cosmological perspective, how we have come to be in this world, what our role in this world really is, and the potential, according to these texts, that we each harbor already within our bodies. And this is going to be the common theme. We already have something inside of us that is so rare and so precious and so powerful that deception and lies and wars have been used to distract and divert us from what that is. And we're going to do this from the perspective of these texts, and it's fascinating. And I think for people who've never seen anything like this, it offers a global perspective, a big picture. Now, it is not science. This is information, oral tradition.
History. Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, history, oral traditions that we're committed to writing. People lost their lives trying to preserve these traditions. I think we owe it to ourselves to at least look
Right.
at what they are saying.
Well,
The bottom line for this is that this world that we live in is a copy. It is a flawed copy of another world.
mm,
Now, if you're a scientist, that sounds a whole lot like a simulation, and we'll talk about that. But we live in a flawed copy, and there's a reason that we have been coerced
mm,
to experience this flawed copy, and there are tactics that are being used to keep us in this imperfect copy
yeah.
of a more perfect world, and the deception in terms of not revealing the truth of who we are and where we've come from. I just want to say that, you know, in the Essene texts, the ancient Essenes, they say very clearly the only difference, John, between the angels of the heavens and the angels that walk this earth is that the angels of the heavens remember that they're angels.
Yeah.
And that implies that there is something very deep and very powerful, very sophisticated, very advanced within us. But that, again, is not science. These are oral traditions. So we're going to begin
Yeah.
with that big picture.
Well, let me just contextualize
Sure.
this for
Sure.
our listeners and viewers. This is important, critically important, because of the times right now, and because of the fact that, as we both understand, and it's a central kind of theme in your new book, is that we're at a transition point, an extraordinary kind of decision point, an inflection point, if you will, about whether humanity not only stays the same, but then evolves into this larger kind of capability that you're alluding to right now.
Yeah.
And that there isn't really a whole lot of time before the programs and the technologies and the processes and the values that are already in place all converge to try to drive the whole system off in another direction. And so we're at this very critical place where knowing who we are and what we can do and what's a part of us and what our capabilities are is just fundamental to this whole thing. And so we're excited about this. This is neat.
Well, this is one unconventional perspective, and for people who've never heard of these councils, these were the councils where the emerging church at the time, male dominated, gathered to determine which of the texts that were already ancient in their time, which of those would be preserved and passed down to future generations, and which ones they felt, in their opinion, were not fit to be passed down.
Right.
And that fitness played a powerful role in the power of the church. Any texts that revealed a self-empowerment were frowned upon, because the goal was for the church to be the intermediary for us to find our power by going through the church. And these texts clearly say that is not true, and that's why they're called heretical texts. So we're going to dive into that. Again, this is not science. Where the science comes in, I'll just begin with a story. In 1871, there was, well, prior to 1871, anyone who read the Homer's poetry, the Iliad and the Odyssey, was taught that these were fairy tales. They were fantasy, they were fiction, and they were accepted that way, as I said, up until 1871. There was an amateur archaeologist named Heinrich Schliemann, and he asked a very simple question. He said, what if Homer's Iliad and Odyssey, what if they're not fiction? What if they're a roadmap? What would happen if I follow them to the place that they depict? What would that reveal? So he put together an archaeological team. They did just that. They found an ancient mound. They began excavating the mound, and they found 7 layers, John, of cities that had been lost and forgotten. And on the 7th layer, they excavated the gates of the ancient city of Troy. And for the first time discovered that Troy was not a fantasy, it wasn't fiction, that it was real. So I'm using this as an example, because something very similar has happened now from the Sumerian texts that are some of the oldest written texts that we have today. For example, the Epic of Gilgamesh, that are recorded in cuneiform writing. Both Sumerian and Akkadian both use the cuneiform writing. Well, the Epic of Gilgamesh has always been believed to be a fairy tale. And the essence is of a being who was a hybrid between what we would call ET or an alien intelligence and human intelligence, who came to rule for a period of time upon the surface of the earth. And his search for immortality. That was the goal, the whole Epic of Gilgamesh. Well,
Yeah.
in the early 2000s, German archaeologists did what Heinrich Schliemann had done, over 100 years earlier. He said, what if this isn't a fairy tale? Well, in the Epic of Gilgamesh, they say that Gilgamesh's tomb is buried under the Euphrates River. And interestingly, the name of that river hasn't changed in 5,000 years, that the tomb is under the river. Well, climate change is drying the river and diverting the course of the river. And for the first time, archaeologists were able to excavate under the Euphrates in the place. They found the temple site. They found a tomb believed to be the tomb of Gilgamesh. This is where you can't make this stuff up. It happened only a matter of weeks before the United States invaded Iraq in 2003. And when the US went in, they took over the archaeological site. The archaeologists were relieved of their duties. And what has happened since then is, it sounds like science fiction conspiracy, make a great movie, because there is a lot of misinformation and disinformation about whether or not that tomb was found and what it would mean. This is within the context of another archaeological discovery that is called the Sumerian Kings List. Now, we've talked about this at some of the transition talks, but this is fascinating because it is a list of the rulers of this earth that were found on a Sumerian stela, is what it's called. And it goes back 240,000 years. Well, this is interesting because the first humans appeared 200,000 years ago. So what this king's list, there are 8 kings before the Great Flood, and geologically, we can confirm that flood. The length of the time they reigned are in thousands of years and are believed to be fairy tales. Scientists say that can't possibly be true. One human cannot rule for 28,000 years, which is what the King's List says. However, you get to the flood and it's exact, John, it's right on the date, and all the kings after the flood are exact, right on the length of time when they were there. Well, where this gets interesting is Gilgamesh is the ruler after the Great Flood. And the text actually says, after the flood, the kingship descended from the heavens to the earth. So if we have an actual tomb of Gilgamesh, it suggests that we were in the past ruled by a hybrid species. And what the point of the whole Sumerian text is, that we are the product of an intervention, a genetic intervention. Now we have archaeological evidence supporting the story that says that's true. That is archaeology, and there's some mystery around that. The third unconventional source, where this gets really, really interesting, is when the scientists mapped the human genome back in the year 2000. Bill Clinton went on national television to make the announcement, which is something rarely a president will do, is make a scientific announcement. What they didn't say when they said that we had mapped the human genome, what they didn't say, John, is that we mapped the tip of the iceberg. We understand 2% of the human genome that is believed to code for the proteins that make us who we are. In other words, 98% is not known, and it has been called junk DNA. We've all heard that. Well, now there's a new term. What happened was, as scientists began examining the DNA that we do know, they found the outcome of genetic processes, but there was no visible DNA to create those processes, implying that it is originating in the 98% that we don't know, that is now called the dark genome. Well, this gets really interesting, because what we begin to see is that dark genome is the product of mutations that cannot be explained by evolutionary science. The scientists say that there has been some kind of an intervention to create the fusion of chromosomes for chromosome 2, for example, or the tweaking of genes. And and that these are not the products of long, slow, gradual processes, that they happen relatively quickly about 200,000 years ago. And if that number sounds familiar, that's because we just mentioned that was what the Sumerians said was the time when they began to intervene and create the first humans. Now, the text that the church has hidden also talk about creating the first humans, how it was done and the reason it was done, and that the first humans were hidden within them, a secret that empowers them to return to a higher state of existence. Gilgamesh, by creating and participating in creating human, giving us godlike genetics as well as human, what were then called primate genetics, implies the same thing. And now our own science is saying, hey, 98% of our DNA, we call dark DNA, it is playing a much bigger role. It's not doing the coding, John. It is influencing what's doing the coding. And here's the exciting part, and I'll stop with this, is that we have direct access to that dark DNA through a series of triggers that we're only beginning to understand. So this is where we're going to go with the program.
So what I want to know is, do you know what the secret is?
The secret to?
That everybody brought along with them, that is supposed to be the open up the
absolutely.
Don't say it.
No, well, according, and this is why it's important, John, I think, to look at diverse, non-conventional sources of information, because the secret is the reason that these are heretical texts and that they were banned from the traditional.
And that's what you're going to talk about on the 31st, right?
We're going to talk about that and much more.
Well, it'll be wonderful to have you with us, and wonderful kind of overview here. Thank you very much for this thing. Let me just remind everybody that you're going to be here on Saturday, the 31st of May. And we'll get started at 9:30 in the morning and work our way through the whole day. We're going to be this time, for those who have been here in the past, and it'll be a full house. And so there'll be a lot of folks coming that haven't been here before. And the place where you've been in the past and which is the Cool Font Resort, burned down, and so we no longer have that venue available.
Yeah, but it's not because of us, John. It's not because we were so hot that we burned it down.
No. And so anyway, we're going to be at the American Legion, which is got the biggest room in the county, and it's a really nice place. And they've got a bar next door. So on breaks, people can go, whatever. But we're going to have a good time, and it'll really be great. And we will live stream it like we've done before. And so folks who can't make it to our little town of Berkeley Springs, West Virginia, can check in and watch this from wherever, and be able to see it and replay it for 6 months afterwards. And so thank you again. Thanks for this delightful kind of summary. And this is get me all excited. We're going to have a good time.
We are, John. I very much appreciate you, all the team behind you that makes this possible. I want to welcome everybody that's going to be with us, and those that can't join us. I promise I'll look into the camera every once in a while.
Oh, good.
for the streaming.
And not walk all over the place.
No, you know, I just want to say, John, I was on the streaming end of one of the presentations you did with Frank Jacob, and you do a beautiful job. It's professionally done. The music breaks, the way the cameras are set, and I felt like I was right there in the room. So I want to tell you, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Oh, good. Yeah, it'll be good.
Yeah.
So thanks again. Appreciate it. And look forward to seeing all of you with us on the 31st of May. Take care.
Look forward to it.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Greg.